Welcome to the Fresh and Fired Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Marshall, here with my amazing co-host, the wild, wonderful Haley Pindle. We are here today to help you function at your best in health, fitness, and life. Let's get fired up.
Let's get fired up.
Whoop, whoop. So it is back to school week for those of us who are parents. Okay, well, this episode's actually not coming out within this week. But when you listen to it, you'll be like, oh, they must have recorded this during back to school week.
We did.
But that's okay.
2 days after you getting back to school.
Exactly. So now we are past that point and we have survived back to school week. So great work. I know I have many friends who are teachers and I feel like it hits them even harder because they're like, oh, wow, right? Like these kids are amazing. But through transition, it's like they're wild at first. And some of it's good emotions, like they're excited, but it's like kind of chaotic and unruly until you get them into their rhythm, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the parents are like, oh, thank gosh. And all the teachers are like, no, wait, where's my summer?
Oh no, here we go again. Well, it's one of those things. I think most people who get into to teaching, they do it because they like to work with kids and all of that. But I will say it does come with its challenges. Like I learned a lot more through coaching the gymnastics team being at younger ages. And I was out of that for a while. Like it was like normally mostly interacting with adults through our clinic and then coaching like fitness and health training is adults. And then usually people who are the clothing line, my Frexy jackets are women's. So much adult interaction other than my own kids. Then you get like a large group of other people's kids and you're like, okay, how do I lead these children? They're amazing, but also this is a challenge. It's good.
Yeah, because everyone's got like different parenting styles and different upbringing. So every kid is so different. So like, how do you respond to each and every one of them? It's a learning curve. And I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited for that to
I
be
know
exposed to it. Because like, I'm definitely in the adults only. We're in the adults only club right now.
The adults
And
only
up
world.
until the point where I have kids where I feel like then we're going to get into sports. I'm going to force Justin to coach and stuff.
Exactly. Well, it's funny, like our four kids, they are between ages for, if you're new to the podcast, I have 4-year-old, 7-year-old, 9-year-old, 12-year-old. And one thing I'm super thankful for is obviously every kid loves summer break, but our kids do actually like school as well. Like, not that they're like, I love school more than summer break, but they were excited to get back, see their friends, get into the swing of things. So I do feel for the parents who their kids hate school because I feel like that would be way worse. So at least, I don't know, we're doing okay over here because my kids the last 2 days have come home and been like, oh, we have this now and this person and da da da. And they're like excited after school. So I'm like, oh, I'm so thankful for that.
I think it's super funny too, like how different kids are. How are yours with like attachment? Because I feel like growing up, my brother and I were very different, where he was more so like attached and didn't want to go to school, where I was like, see ya.
See you later. It's hilarious. All of our kids are like, see you later. They're like independent, which I think because from a young age, both my husband and I have always worked to some capacity. So we've always been kind of like in and out of the house. They've had sometimes one of us here for chunks of time fully with them when they were little, but then also times where we've had like daycare or nanny, or like they've always interacted with lots of different people, which I think makes it easier. They're like less attached to just you. So that has actually been good. And it's kind of freeing to see them. They have a certain level of like resilience and confidence. And yeah, it's good. This is funny though. We had the first time. So my oldest daughter being 12, she's taken her babysitter's course. The first time we left just her and my other daughter, my 9-year-old, home alone. It was only for like an hour. We're taking the boys to the grocery store. They didn't want to come. They were sitting there coloring at the counter. And we're like, okay, everything's going to be okay. Like the home phone, you remember our numbers. They're written out here. We did the whole parenting thing of like, don't turn on the stove. Like you go through.
Don't answer the door. They don't have candy.
Yes. Don't answer the door to anyone. Like all of that speech. Right. And then as I go to leave, I'm like, all right, guys, we'll see you later. And then my 9-year-old, who was 8 at the time, she's like, well, unless you never return. And I was like, what? So then I'm like, well, you guys know how to make smoothies, so you'll probably be fine. They're like, oh yeah, we can make smoothies. We got the cereal and and they list the foods they can cook. They're like, and so we have these friends, our neighbor friends. They're like, and if you guys don't come back for a while, we'll just walk over to the neighbor's house. Like they're kind of like so nonchalant.
A bad case of Home Alone.
Yeah, exactly. They had this whole contingency plan, but they like weren't actually concerned at all. We're like, oh, okay, you guys will just be fine without us, I
Yeah,
guess.
making chocolate sundaes, watching movies until the bandits, the
Yeah,
whatever they were
they're
called, the
they're
sugar
totally Home
bandits
Alone
come knocking
kids.
on the door, and then you gotta booby trap your house.
They have a plan. You know what's funny too is our 7-year-old, he kind of looks like Kevin. Like he's got the same blonde hair, and it's like he even has a haircut like him right now, and he can do the Home Alone impersonation. So like yeah, we're definitely, our kids are like indoctrinated with like, oh no, we'll be fine. We will relive Home Alone.
Absolutely, that's they just have that movie plan and just follow it step by step. It's laid out so
It's
clearly.
it's so funny, right? Uh,
Love it.
it is. There is something to be said though for when you are in any point of transition, the more grounded you can be as the adults, like really, you are leading your household, right? And I think this applies to any situation, whether you're leading your own children or you don't have children and you are just leading yourself, and then that translates, how do you lead in your workplace, and even if you're not the boss or in charge of your workplace, you still have a certain level of leadership, right? I think all of us do in some capacity, and so much of that comes down to, in order to create a space where people feel safe and secure and well led, you need to be grounded in your communication and your relationship. Like if you can create this safe environment for open communication, it's going to translate into how your kids act, or if you're an employer, how your employees act, if you're a teacher, how the students act. And I find that it's so fascinating when you read the book Extreme Ownership by, I'm forgetting his name right now, Jocko Willink. Have you read that one?
No, I'll add
Well,
it to the
he
list.
added to the list, Extreme Ownership. He talks about like there's no bad teams, only bad leaders. And it's one of those things where I think we can so easily during transition points being like, oh, my kid's misbehaving, or like, oh, my kids are so clingy or so stressed out. Or people do it with their teenagers, right?
Mhm.
They'll kind of complain about their teenagers. But the same thing, like employers complain about certain employees, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, if you are in any capacity in a leadership position and you are unhappy with how the culture is, it comes back to you. It really does. I feel like people hate hearing
It's
that.
top down for sure.
It's like, what are you tolerating? And you set the tone. Like my husband and I just had a conversation about this. Is like, he so much sets the tone for our family. Like we both do to a certain extent, but him even more so. I'm like, and he knows. He's like, yes, I know. If he wakes up in a bad mood, it will like sabotage the entire family more so than me, which maybe, I don't know. I like to think I'm in less bad moods, but let's not even get into that.
He has the
John's
power.
he has a lot of power. So it's one of those things, right? Where if we can be communicating, we did really, like, I'm feeling good about, we did a really good job this year about getting organized at the end of our summer break, even to the point where I'm like, I organized our house more so that on school mornings, kids are like, we know where everything is. You're not searching for this sweater that you're missing, picking clothes out the night before. It's these like simple little things. And we even sat down as a family and like went through, how do we want to structure the routine of our morning, like who's showering when. And it's not so strict that it's like your shower time's at 9:58 or whatever the time is. But it's not that
On the
strict, but
dot.
it's more like almost in half-hour chunks. Like everyone for sure is up by 7 a.m. We're all have, breakfast is starting by 7:30. So whatever you're doing in that half hour, like our girls will shower. Like my 12-year-old has taken the initiative where she does this little like 15-minute workout every morning when she walks, like when she wakes up. It's really cool because it's like we talk about, it doesn't need to be 45 minutes, it doesn't need to be an hour, but just building in the habit of that.
Mhm.
And then as long as they're already at the breakfast table by 7:30, then it's like, okay, next half hour, everyone but should be making lunches and getting dressed and doing hair or whatever between 8 and 8:30. Like again, it's loosely structured, but it's kind of, if you have these little checkpoints,
Yeah.
it makes it less crazy and chaotic. And when it's not that we can control everything, but we can control the controllables and let go of the uncontrollables. And then that's going to allow you to be in a better mental and emotional state to communicate your needs to each other as a family. And I think that's huge, especially in, yeah, in any relationship. But if you are in a married relationship, like if it's you and your spouse, like as soon as your communication starts to break down, that, yeah, that leads to a lot.
Absolutely, and I
Everything falls
feel
apart,
like
basically.
yeah, I feel like when you stop communicating or like you don't even have a good basis in general, it's just this whole like trying to read each other's minds sort of thing. And like there's like that brutal game of telephone where by the end of the game, the the sentence is just so mangled. You have
Oh,
no idea
totally.
what's actually going on, right? So like having that open communication, regardless if it's like a hard conversation, can just like lay everything out. Here's the facts. Here's what's going on. Like, how do we deal with this, like, as a partnership and as a team?
Yeah. And I think it's a good question to ask. Like, why is it so hard to communicate our needs in relationships? So when you think about, like, so much of it comes back to many of us grew up not being taught or not even having the communication of like, what is a healthy relationship? What does a healthy relationship look like? And how is that communicated? And that can be like our, witnessing our moms and dads, but then also in friendships, right? You
Mhm.
think about like there's bullies in school and there's people who treat you like a doormat, or there's people who are really friendly, there's the people pleasers, there's all these different groups. Think about high school and like the cliques, and you can almost imagine like, right, it's
Same people,
crazy.
different names. Yep.
Well, and people will carry that into adulthood. There's
Yes.
times when it's like you go into the staff room for teachers, and it's almost like the same high school clique groups, but just adult version. You're
Yep.
like, oh my goodness, right? So it's like, how have you been raised? What are your experiences both in school or through the different phases of your life? And I think a lot of things that come up are, we fear rejection. Like it'll be hard to communicate our needs because we fear rejection, we fear judgment, and we fear things like being too much for people or being annoying, or I don't know, you can attach the different words to it, or like not being enough, disappointing people. So we attach all of that to whether or not we even decide to communicate and have the crucial conversation, or to avoid it. And it kind of comes back to that same thing. Are we heightened into the state of fight or flee? That can occur a lot in communication. And then you've got the emotions that then get tied into it. And when you attach emotion to the story in your head, all you have to do is start thinking about how this is going to unravel. And you've got emotions attached like frustration or sadness or resentment. And so what comes out is your emotion, or maybe you've been modeled and you've seen where instead of clear words coming out, you just see outbursts like yelling or crying, or and crying is not bad in and of itself, but when it's attached to emotions like resentment, or just heightened
Yeah.
fear or a lot of anger that have led to like bad fights, and now you don't want to experience a bad fight like this again. Another really big one, this is the last one I'll say because I know I've been monologuing, but uh betrayal is one of the worst ones. So if you've got like this, if you've experienced communicating your needs in a relationship and the person on the other side has gone along with it and been like, oh yeah, no problem, it's no big deal, and they're all like to your face, it's fine, and then they go behind your back and they bad talk you to someone else, or you think the issue is resolved but they're holding this deep grudge and they've now betrayed this trust, that to your face they're like, no worries, it's fine, but really they're actually thinking something completely different, and it comes back to you through a gossip chain. That is a horrible feeling, and people will avoid that like the plague.
Yeah. That is so true. I feel like that's the biggest like mind F you could ever kind of have. And that's more so like also very prevalent in like toxic relationships where it's like you say one thing and then you do the other and your actions don't match up with your words and you're like so confused. That's where like the confusion comes in. But even like friendships, like that happens so often in friendships and like even like lifelong friendships, right? Where it's like this most confusing I think the most confusing part is like you put your trust in that person. However, like even if you do get burned, like people get burned, relationships, friendships, work relationships, whatever have you, but like if you let that define your next future or your next step, like that is where the real detrimental part happens, right?
Totally.
Because like I was definitely in more of a toxic relationship, friendships have crumbled down. But like if you let that one thing define your future, you're the one that's losing, right? And plus, there's always two sides to the coin. Like you, to some degree, allow things to happen. I feel like it's more so the dynamic is like people pleaser and then like more so, I don't like to use this word, but like narcissistic people.
Mhm.
Because I feel like that's thrown around way too much.
It is, but I know what you
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And like that's the dynamic that happens. But again, like either one or the other, like when I was more so people person, people pleaser, like you have so much to learn. And like now being in a relationship with Justin and seeing how healthy it is, it's crazy. It really is like there's no roller coasters. It's just like a very stagnant. There's no like, wow, butterflies and like how your tummy gets mangled up and stuff like that, where it's like the excitement and then the letdown, excitement, letdown. So yeah, I feel like you can also have like a skewed version of what a relationship is supposed to look like just based on maybe like your parents or how you were brought up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Well, and we talked about it on our last episode, more related to fitness stuff and nutrition, the bounce back period. Like, how
Hmm.
quickly can you bounce back? And can you continually build on little points of trust?
Yeah.
So I know I grew up. We can talk today, Haley. I know it. I
Not last time.
I'm pep talking myself. So I look back at how I was raised, and I'm very thankful, like loving relationship for my mom and dad. My little one is literally calling through the door. Okay, the 4-year-old needs something. I'm just gonna pause for a sec. Sorry,
Okay.
Haley. We'll just cut this out.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, go and get one and then turn the thing back on, okay? All right. I'll have to
Yay.
chop that out.
We love it.
Shoot, I don't know where I was then.
You're stacking on top of each other,
Little
little
buildings of
trusts.
trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know where I was going with it now.
I was talking about you were talking about you were grateful for having a nice like family
Well,
life,
let's
your
start that again.
parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how I was raised, I grew up with a very like viewing a very loving relationship between my mom and dad, which I'm very thankful for. However, I also didn't that I never saw them fight. Like they didn't ever there was no openness to like we've had a fight and we made up or we like I didn't really observe any sort of confrontation from them, which is good in a sense, but they definitely would have had things that they had to work through with their business, and they were more private about it. So I kind of had this skewed view of like there's never any fights in relationships, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I know John and we've got into disagreements. And in the beginning of our marriage, I was like, see, this is horrible. We're not agreeing on everything 100% of the time, and I was kind of so, but I really learned and we worked through a lot of stuff being like, well, but when you in the moment, when you're in a state of disagreement, emotions are heightened, and we're both pretty high octane people, right? So we can get like intense, and when we'd actually calm down and reflect on it, it's like, dude, 90% of the time we are getting along, we're on the same page, we have similar values, we have so much fun together, we're best friends. So really, when you look at the percentages, Are you going to abandon a relationship over 5% of disagreement, or even if it's 10%? You know what I mean? I think you really got to weigh those percentages, because people can look at like, oh, we didn't agree on this one thing, so we can't make this work. It probably depends on what it is as well. But being able to either after the fact have almost like a debriefing time within yourself and your partner as well, and being able to come back together when you're not in a heightened state of emotion and actually reflect on, did you just not sleep well? You know, were you hungry? Was I overreacted because of my hormonal phase? You know, like, and actually taking a hard look at like, is this something that we can communicate through and grow from, rather than making it, blowing it even more out of proportion than it actually is, right? I think keeping yourself grounded in communication is very important as well, and
Absolutely.
realistic, right? Like, it's not going to be 100% agreement all the time.
Absolutely. And I think that you hear people say, like, usually your fights are like the same sort of principle, just in different ways. And I think that's
Repeat.
so, so true. Cause, like, when you were speaking and you were like, 5% of the time is maybe disagreement, and 9% of the time is great. I'm like relating this back to my past relationship where it was like completely opposite. Like 90% of the time we were fighting.
Yeah.
And like that was what I saw when I was growing up. Like they like my parents did fight, like they had a business together and obviously there was like different dynamics. However, like you see all of that and you're like, yeah, that's normal.
Yeah.
That's normal to like blow up at each other just because we're passionate. We're passionate about this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But yeah, it's so not normal to do that. And I think just being really self-aware, you've talked about this so much of like just the awareness part of it. So you don't continue the cycle. Like if
Yes.
you continue the cycle, then you're always going to just copy paste over into your friendships, into your work life. That's how you're going to carry yourself through it until you do like the work and you just realize, you take a step back, you're like, wow, I'm actually not right all the time. What can I
Yeah.
work on? Yeah.
Totally. And it's not if, it's when. It's
Yeah.
when, I'm going to call it a relapse. When you have a relapse of your deeply ingrained neuroscaffolding, your habits that go beyond just you, like the generational habits within your family, you can look back at your family line,
Yeah.
right? And go, it's not to blame it all on genetics, but
Yeah.
there is a component of that too. Partly learned behavior. We've got the nature side of things, the nurture side of things. It all combines. And you have to go, okay, I'm going to acknowledge that this exists. This is the reality that I've had in my life so far. And you can do tons of self development and growth, and give yourself the credit for, like, you know, when you've made progress, like celebrate the fact that like you've made progress in these areas, but you are going to relapse. And when you do, the quicker you can make it right, the better. I had a situation like this just within this week where John and I were pretty stressed out about a couple things. And I think it was just all bottlenecking with getting back to school and sports. And we are down staff at our clinic,
Yeah.
and you know, a combination, we all, everyone has all their things that go on in life, right? It's not a woe is me, it's just like a certain times of your life is going to be more of a push, and some times it's like we just got to get, we're going all uphill, running uphill, and then other times you do get those little like downhill coasters, right?
Mhm.
Right now we're kind of in push mode, and we were both pretty stressed, and I kind of, how do I put this, I made a really quick, impulsive decision when it came to some of our community work. And it was almost like, I'm done, forget it, like, cut this out. And the next day, I was like, that was pretty rash, Em. That was like an old M move. You know what I mean? And so I instantly went to the community group and was like, listen, I made a really quick decision yesterday. I was pretty rash. There was a lot of other stresses going on in the background. I apologize for any stress that that I've caused you. I've thought more about it. I've come up with a solution that I think could work. So like, it was a very quick like turnaround. Whereas in the past, old M, I'm gonna call her, would have stewed on that, felt horrible about that for longer, had more sleepless nights, felt like I failed everyone, felt like I need to quit everything because I'm such an imposter. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
no, you're going to have those relapse moments, and it doesn't mean that you're not worthy of continuing the work that you're doing.
Exactly. And I think you bring up a good point too of like rather than just sitting and stewing, like you can you can change the trajectory of that decision, like you did. You just go to them, say, hey, like, I made a mistake. I was like, oh, old M, she's like, wow.
Yeah. It was
And
just
like,
like,
here's how I'm
decide
gonna fix
now,
it.
don't think about it, instead of
Yeah.
being like, maybe you should put some thought into this before you make
Yeah,
an impulsive
exactly.
decision.
Exactly, and here's how you're going to fix it, and you apply that rather than like, again, going back to like to the relationship stuff with either your friends or romantic. Like, if you don't change what your pattern is, and if you don't like jump into the deep end again, like I feel like some people can just avoid relationship building in and of itself because it's like, oh, I'm not going. I've done the self mastery and I've done the self help books, but I'm not gonna like apply it because that's scary and it's still like in your body scary,
It
right?
is
So it's so
scary.
important to
Yes.
go and take action for it, like rather than you sitting there and like, oh yeah, I could have done this, that, and the other, and that's great. I'm just not going to do anything about it. Like you actually take action in doing something about it and changing it, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a lot, I totally agree. I also think there's a lot of self-work when it comes to, we are all inherently selfish. When you think
Hmm.
about like the needs of a baby and a toddler, they're like, I want this, I want that, like you kind of have to train them to not be like, I'm just going to grab this out of the other kid's hand.
Yeah.
Oh, I could share this. Like think about kindergartens, right? It's like, oh, they're learning to share, and or take turns or line up and let someone go ahead of you. You're kind of learning all that courtesy and like how to be cooperative and work together. And but ultimately, even as adults, we still have those like gut responses that are like, no, I'm going to dig my heels in and be like, I am right, you are wrong. And a lot of that does root out of selfishness. And even just for you to, or me or you, all of us, when we think about that, it's very difficult because we have to then switch to a place of love and charity for others, not out of begrudgingness, but out of that place of growth. And so I heard it said just the other day, a resource that I was learning from, and it was like defensiveness is selfishness. And it's like
Hmm.
when you're in communication and the person is trying to, come to a place where they're able to express their needs. And there is a different, we can talk about the difference between expressing needs and just being a complainer, right? Or venting and complaining. But if you cut them off with defensiveness before, and I've had to work on this a lot, once I get charged, I'm really bad at cutting John off. Like if he's also really good at knowing how to push my buttons, but he can listen to this and nod in agreement. But if I've already got to a point where like I know you've like intentionally pushed my buttons, and I am just an unhappy camper now, you're gonna talk, and I'm just gonna like cut in and not even give you a chance to say anything,
The
right?
straw that broke the camel's back is off. It's broken.
It's broken, and now you want to go like gloves, like gloves off. We're just gonna go bare fist fight here. But this is all true story. But the defensiveness, when you're cutting in and cutting the person off, this is something I'm learning for myself, and I'm sharing with you out of vulnerability. It's like, take that pause. I'm talking to myself here. Take the pause and listen, because when you cut in and you get defensive, it's really you being selfish and being like, I must exert my authority. I must dominate you. I must be right about this. And maybe there are situations where you actually are right. But in the moment of trying to create a safe space for communication, you need to just exert self control and let the person express their needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes too, I like to think of my defensiveness or whenever I do kind of get that charge. It happens a lot with the social media, and I am well aware that I'm choosing to put my life online. But like when someone comments something,
Mm.
or it's just like a dig or
It's
whatever, it's like,
irritating, right?
yeah, it's like what the like I'm like I could draft up a million and one different responses to this, and then I'll be like stewing in the shower, like, oh, I can't believe she said that. I should have said this, blah 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 blah. But it's like,
Yeah.
why am I getting so defensive about this? Like, why is this bothering me so much? Why is this holding so much capacity in my brain? And I've come to decide that since like it is a very like a vulnerable thing to put your life online, and like you put so much work in the things that you do, and like someone's just like, ugh, then
Yeah,
it gets you in the heart.
it does.
However, I just kind of bring
It
myself
feels
back
personal,
online.
right? It's like a
Yeah,
personal attack. You taking it personally.
exactly, exactly. And then I just kind of have to bring myself back online and say, like, I chose this. I chose to put myself online knowing the risks. I
Yeah,
knew people
totally.
would like can watch any of my stuff. Like I know this.
Yes.
So like just kind of zoom out in terms of like I know it's fine.
Yeah, no, and that you're coming with the benefits
Yeah,
and the risks of being out there, and I know that's
exactly.
something for me I've learned a lot, and this is why I would say for the years that I've been like on public platforms and even within the podcast, I definitely have probably grown slower than people who are prioritizing it even more. So I feel like in order of priority, right? When you're thinking about the different things you're doing, you have to go what's your number one priority, secondary, tertiary, etc. So when if and when crap is hitting the fan or you're struggling in a relationship or a new venture or whatever's going on, you have to go what if I have seven things on my plate, there's going to be times when I can handle five, or if I have five things, there's going to be times when I can handle three. There are times if it's a matter of your mental your mental health crashing, you might need to be it might just be like what is the one thing I need to do today, and that is totally okay. I think our society has gotten too I get there's like the hustle culture and we do want to make progress, but at the expense of what? Are you now, have you prioritized your hustle to the point where your relationships are completely broken or your own mental health is just totally crashed? Like, where are you setting those boundaries for yourself? And they can show up in different places, right? So I know for me, I'm like, I will always prioritize my in person communication with my husband and my children first, then our employees in our physical business. Like, I will prioritize our physical business over like the online business ventures I've done. Whether that's right or wrong, that is the decision I've made in this current phase of my life. And I feel like what people do is they will get conflated and drawn in different directions because they haven't set their priority sequence. They haven't sat down and been like, what are our values as a couple? What are we putting as our first priority? Because the word priorities is deceiving, right? You can't really have five first priorities. They have to sequence. And so I
Exactly.
think that can create a lot of freedom too within your headspace and also within your communication. Because if you have no structure and boundaries, you're like, yeah, there's nothing to go by, right? You're just going to be
Exactly.
drawn in a thousand different directions. And if both you and your partner are in that state, it's going to create more turmoil within your communication too.
Exactly. And I feel like if the two people don't have the same priority or same first priority, anyways, that's where things get all mangle jangle. Like, for example, if John's first priority is like the clinic and just like hounding down, blah, blah, blah. And then yours is like family and he's working late every single day, he's not making it home for dinner, you're going to progressively get more resistant and like, oh,
Yeah,
what the heck are we doing here kind of thing. So like
totally.
having you two be on the same page of like, okay, family is first and that's what we're going to prioritize. And that way you make the actions that you do take, like both of you can kind of be on the same wavelength of taking the same actions. So you're not getting into more fights because you have the same priorities, if that make any sense.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
aligning. It's getting
Yeah.
into this alignment and being like, hey, there is going to also be times where things are running smoothly. We
Mhm.
both have lots of capacity and you're just going to make progress isn't linear. You're going to make more jumps and leaps in progress in certain areas during those high capacity times. And there's going to be other times where it's like we're just maintaining. You've talked about this before. There's going to be a bit of a plateau. We're just maintaining status quo. But the biggest thing is that you're not either just doing nothing all the time or going backwards, right, in your growth pattern. If you do feel like you relapse backwards, that you get yourself on back on track quicker, and it's okay, right? And I think that has to do with forgiveness. Like if you're able to self forgive as well as forgive others, And when you think about, even that ties back into some of what you said about previous relationships and not tainting your current and future relationships with past relationships. That forgiveness component is huge, so that you can get to a place where you can learn a way of healthy communication.
Exactly, exactly, not ruminating. I feel like a lot of people do that, especially, like, with the coaching clients that I have, like, going through disordered eating and, like, the relationship with food.
Mm-hmm.
It just, like, it kind of overwhelms them in the point of, like, "Oh, I can't believe I did this to myself. Oh, I wish I could change things," and all this, that, and the other, and they're really struggling with, like, that forgiveness part of it,
Yes.
where it's like, that is a huge portion for you to be able to move on and move forward.
Totally. And you can reframe it. How you frame how you feel about it, right? Like the forgiveness component, and then how are you framing moving forward? So I think about, I brought up even like the difference between complaining and expressing your needs is all in the way that you frame the communication. And that can be framing it to yourself, like you just referenced, Haley, when it's more about like your inner dialogue, and you can, or it's like you're speaking with someone else. So even think about, like, you might be complaining to yourself like, oh my goodness, you're so horrible at this again, you did this again, or you're talking to someone else, and the complaining focuses on either everything you're doing wrong, like if it's just a self dialogue, or if you're speaking with someone else, it's focusing on everything that person's doing wrong or everything the world is doing wrong. Think about when people are complaining about politics and economics, right? It's like, if you're doing it to a specific person, it might be like, oh my goodness, you never listen. It's like a blaming game, right? Versus when you reframe that, it's going to reduce defensiveness and it's going to create a healthier environment when you express your needs using the language that is like, I feel unseen when, you're like, oh, who cares? But I'm like, well, I care about this and I've put a lot of effort into it. And if you say something like, who cares? I feel really undermined. Not like, oh, you're such a jerk. Like if you go right to like a blaming or a name calling versus acknowledging, this is how I feel or this is how this situation seems, that's going to reframe how you express your needs way better than the like complaining or blaming.
Absolutely. That's a huge thing that, like, I've started to learn and have been progressively learning. It's just like focusing on the situation and not like attacking someone's character, if that makes
Yes.
sense. Like, not being like, oh, you're so this, you're so that, but like, this is the situation, this is what happened, like, just taking it factually. How do we get over this? How do you progressively get over it? So it's not so much like, whenever attacking character is in the play of like your fight or communication, it never ends great, never ends well. So,
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's one of those things, like, check your timing, right? Like, is this a good time to have this conversation? You don't want to ignore or deny that something exists, but you also have to go, like, if it's a really busy, rushed morning, or yeah, the person is distracted or drained. Like, it's almost like, when you take a CPR course and the first thing is like, come in, assess the scene. Is there
How
broken
much pain are
glass?
you in? Scale of 1 to 10.
Yes. Is there broken glass? Is there fire? Does the person look like they fell? You're assessing the scene. Do that with your timing in these communication strategies as well. Be like, hey, this is good. I know this has been going on. I feel tension. You're saying an I feel statement. Is there a good time to talk about this later today or tomorrow? I always like to ask two questions. Like,
Give
give
them an
two.
option.
If you give two options, it makes them feel like they have the
Don't
power.
do an open-ended question.
Don't, yeah. So that's huge. And then frame the need, right? Like what we just said, don't lead with criticism or blaming. But I call this my clear connect formula. Okay.
I
It's
thought
like
you were gonna say Clear Connect 4.
clear connection, the formula for clear connection. Because I always think, yes, communication, we like to use that term, but ultimately we're fostering better and deeper connections, right? And so what you want to do is you want to validate the person, right? Like if they come back at you with like, oh, I'm just really busy or I'm really stressed right now, you want to validate that and be like, yeah, it sounds like you have a lot going on right now. Like, I totally agree. That sounds really hard. And do it in a way that's genuine. And then this is a time where you can use an open question. Follow with an open question. Like, would you be open to whatever's going on? You guys are really busy. Let's say I come into the relationship, like I come into the scenario and I'm feeling like my spouse never helps getting the kids to bed. It's all on me and everyone's tired and whatever, right? I might be like, would you be open to helping with getting the kids to bed tonight? You can express your need and then listen to what they say. Because if your partner is like, oh, well, actually, I have a meeting and I have to go back to the office and I'm going to be there late. Okay, well, then, you know what I mean? Like that you might need to find a solution that is even bigger and longer term versus like there's going to be things that are one-offs, right? That you're like, oh, maybe you're good with getting kids to bed most nights, but you're just really drained today and you're asking for help and the person is available. They're just not used to helping because you normally do it. So
Mhm.
they don't have to take care of it, right?
Yeah.
And then if you can express, so it's like you validate them, you give your question that is also expressing your need within it. You listen to their response. That's the hardest part, actually listening, not getting defensive, not jumping in and cutting them off. And then this is where the connection part comes in, is drawing it back to something that is beneficial for both of you. That's a win-win. So like, yeah, would you be open to helping me get the kids into bed tonight? Because I'm just feeling really exhausted. Let them answer and then be like, yeah, because I'd really love a quiet moment to just hang out with you later. Like if they realize then that your reasoning behind it is not begrudging, like, well, because I just do everything and you do nothing. It's like,
Yeah.
no, because I want to actually have some time with you and I want to get kids to bed so we can have a moment together. Right. And so I think that that's much more motivating for a person than you never do anything and I do everything. Does that make sense?
Because like the guards just come up whenever someone again attacks your kid. It's just like whoosh.
Yep.
Meow. Then lightsabers are out. Meow.
And if
Meow.
you're repeating it in the same way, it starts to just feel like nagging, right?
Yep. Exactly. Gosh, I'm learning so much from you. You're like
Ugh.
my marriage counselor. So
You know what? I just feel like so much is rooted in this. And being in business, as long as I've been in business, you wouldn't believe the number of people who apply to work at our clinic that are leaving another workplace because they're so tired of the toxic environment. And usually it comes down to poor communication or
mhm.
gossip or tolerating behaviors that are bullying. And you're
True.
like, dude, this is not a school ground, it is workplace,
And
and
we're
then
all
people carry that
adults.
into their homes,
Exactly. I
right?
totally agree.
Well, this was fun. Go communicate and connect full force, right?
Heck yeah. Get your lightsabers out.
Get your lightsabers out. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Make sure hey, there's still a percentage of you who are following our content and are not subscribed. It's a quick, easy way to support the content so we can keep doing this for you and help more people function at their best in health, fitness, and life. Make sure you leave us a rating or a review and share this episode with a friend. And in the meantime, be free, feel fresh, and live on fire.
That was fabulous.